join me for the making of a double-walled teapot, a more sculptural piece. Starting on the potter's wheel, throwing off the hump, starting with the external layer, giving it roughly the desired shape. I don't worry so much about the little wobble here, because it's going to be corrected later on. Very unprofessional of me, I know. Moving on, I'll throw the inner layer. What I like about throwing off the hump is that I don't have to center a piece of clay every time. I can just play with the same hump of clay and just cut it off the hump. It feels faster and more fun to me. This is the inner layer, so it has to be a little bit smaller. And I'm keeping a hump of clay a little higher at the rim in order to create a little ridge where the lid will sit. There we go, we have both our layers. Moving on to throwing the lid of the pot. This goes pretty quick. As you can see, it's mainly two movements, one to create that little ridge and one to elevate the lid here that's upside down so that I can carve out a knob at the trimming stage. And lastly, we're going to need a little spout. I don't need a lot of clay for the spouts because it needs to be quite thin and quite small as well. Over the years I figured that spouts on teapots are rarely too small, but they are often too big. Little pro tip right here. Moving on to the trimming stage. This is where the piece is refined, perfected, and the little wobbles are mostly getting rid of. Especially, well, mostly in places where they matter, such as in the junction between the lid and the body that needs to fit well and be leveled. So this is how I trim the lids usually. I just place it upside down on the pot in order to remove the excess clay on the lid's ridge. And once I have the correct size, then I can flip it the other side, so the right side up, and then work on the knob. This is a much longer process than what I show here. There's a lot of testing, adjusting, testing, but roughly that's the way it goes. Okay, once I have my lid, I'm wondering how to merge those two layers. I have a plan in mind, but first I need to make a little filter for a spout. I poke tiny holes into this incurved ball, then clean them one by one, and this makes sure that the piece is functional, so it could strain even tiny broken leaves and it will allow for a vigorous pour, so a lot of water can pour through. Whereas if I would only have 3 little holes, I would have a little drippy pour, which is not really fun. Moving on to carving or cutting the correct angle on the spout, and then glue it with slip onto the body. Cleaning out our junction. And moving on with the plan, which was to cut the outer layer in order to sculpt it a little bit and then glue it back around the inner layer. This will all make sense in the end. I need a hole for the spout to go through. And once that is done, carved out, I will proceed to scratch everywhere where the two pieces will stick together. So that includes the rim of the inner layer and the cut line of the outer layer. I have a little bit of footage missing here, but you can imagine what was in between those shots. It's basically making sure that the fit is perfect and cleaning the junction line to make it seamless and visible. And we have a double layered pot. I'm now attaching the handle. So I do realize there's a couple of steps missing, but this is not gatekeeping. This is just me forgetting to record at times. And lastly, we have the most satisfying part, which is bringing our design idea to life by ripping away parts of the outer layer. Because we have an inner layer which will assure the function, holding of the water. So here I'm just ripping through it randomly. And I'm being careful to keep the natural ripping texture. I think if I would have cut it clean with my little knife, it would be a little bit more boring. I like this natural rough texture around the edges. It unfortunately got partially covered by the glaze, but that's learning for the next batch. At this stage, the clay is, we say, leather hard. It's a little bit harder than that, so it can kind of break easily. I have to be careful though not to poke through the inner layer, which I did a couple times, but then I repair it with a brush, a bit of slip. And I decided to add some additional texture on the surface. And here's our result before fire. And here it is with its black glaze. Cheers.